Guys, there are spoilers for this film and this review. So, if you don't want to ruin your friendship, go out, watch the film, then come back. You have been warned. Hey guys, welcome back to another week of Ticket Tuesday. I'm your host, Ronan HD. So yeah, this is going to be a great time. Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Ticket Tuesday. I'm your host, Ronan HD, and this week we watched Friendship, starring Tim Robinson and Paul Rudd. This film is a comedy, just kind of awkward comedy, kind of realistic comedy. I don't know what to call it. It was a comedy, but I liked it. It was very strange. It was kind of hard to watch at times, but it was funny, entertaining, and I just liked it. But before I go on a whole tangent, why I like this film, I'll tell you why I like this film and more. Back at the house.
Honey, the new neighbor invited you over for a drink at 8 tonight. I said you'd go.
I can see the future. It's full of pals. I'm on the edge of life, and the view is gorgeous.
Look, we had a couple of really nice hangs, but I think it best that we go our separate ways.
Give me a second chance. Get to know me.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Ticket Tuesday. I'm your host, Ronan HD, and this week we watched Friendship. I don't know. This film is, it came out theatrically this year, but technically was released in 2024 due to it making the rounds in festivals last year. But it is a awkward comedy, pretty much just a comedy, pretty much. Just like a pretty, dry comedy starring Tim Robinson, Paul Rudd, Kate Mara, and Jack Dylan Grazer. Sorry if I did not pronounce any of that correctly. But this film, I think, is very fun, but in a different way, right? It's not like a So Bad It's Good movie, or just a knee slapper, I don't even know, I don't know, it's not a romp, but I think it's entertaining in the fact that it's just how much worse can this guy's life get, right? How much can he fuck his own life up? How much can he fuck his own life up even more than he already has? And that's kind of funny. But if you did, I've heard of Tim Robinson's show. I think it was called I Think You Should Leave. And I haven't watched an episode of it, but I have seen skits. Right, I've seen the skits because it's a skit show, right? There's no continuity, and from what I've seen, the humor seems pretty similar in the fact that it's awkward, right? Some of it, other times it's bombastic and surreal and absurd, but other times it's just awkward, improvised conversations between two comedians. Which, let's be real, is sometimes some of the best comedy, just improvised randomness, right? But I think that this movie just has that energy of I Think You Should Leave. Literally has that energy. Because Tim Robinson's character, while he's not malicious, he is very bad for himself, right? He just keeps fucking everything up and keeps getting himself into worse and worse situations. Because he's impulsive, but he only becomes impulsive because he meets Paul Rudd. And the moment he sees Paul Rudd, he's his role model, right? He wants to be best buddies with Paul Rudd, right? And he just starts taking everything that Paul Rudd says is gospel, right? He is in the religion of Paul Rudd, just like Mark Ruffalo. But here's the thing, that's Paul Rudd. But but anyway, I really do like the strange relationship that they have in this film, because obviously Tim Robinson's character is kind of a recluse at the beginning of the movie. You know, he's kind of doesn't do a lot. He doesn't want to do a lot. He just kind of keeps himself, sits on his phone all day on a chair. But he then, has a drink with Paul Rudd and everything changes. His world opens up from the wise words of Paul Rudd. Right? And he just starts doing more impulsive things to go on an adventure, to be cool, I guess, because he thinks he's super cool, so he wants to be cool, right? He thinks Paul Rudd's cool, he wants to be like Paul Rudd. But that, he doesn't really know what he's doing, the entire movie, right? So at one point, Paul Rudd takes him down like a sewer, like an underground sewer, like in the night, to like break into City Hall to go on the roof and hang out, which obviously breaking into City Hall is pretty illegal, right? You can't do that. But obviously in the middle of the night, maybe you could get away with it, unless they have cameras, which then they probably would have cameras, so you'd be fucked. But he then tries to do that with his wife later in the movie to go on an adventure, and then she goes missing for several days. So it didn't quite go to plan. And then he rats on Paul Rudd after he gets arrested for doing that, and then Paul Rudd also gets arrested. And it's a whole thing. And then at the end of the movie, you think he's finally got it all figured out. That, he's going to put it aside. He's not going to do it anymore. He's a straight man. Straight man. Like, I don't mean, like, sexuality-wise. I mean, like, he's going straight. He's going in a straight line. He knows what he's doing. He's confident in himself, right? But then he sees that Paul Rudd got his dream car finally. He saw Paul Rudd's house, and he just couldn't resist. He couldn't contain himself. So then he breaks into his house, climbs over the fence, walks in, and then he threatens them all with a gun, which he's not a dangerous guy because he's just kind of doing it, I think, because he's still upset that Paul Rudd doesn't want to be his friend. Like, the entire movie, like, after Paul Rudd goes, we had a couple nice hangs, but I think it's best if we just part ways. Right? I don't know. There's something funny about that line. I don't know what's funny about it. It's just, maybe it's the way Paul Rudd says it. It's just funny. It's like, we had a couple nice hangs. Like, who says that? Who says we had a couple nice hangs? What is a hang? I don't know. It's just funny. But he was upset the whole movie after that because he thought that they were really close. He thought that he was like best buddies with Paul Rudd. But obviously Paul Rudd did not reciprocate, which made him sad. So at the end of the movie, he threatens him with a gun. But then earlier in the movie when they were in prison together, it was revealed that he had a toupee and he like had a wig and he was balding, right? But if that had come out, his career would be ruined, right? As like the weatherman, because he has to look presented and like he looks all great. But if he has a bald spot, that's not too pleasant to look at in the morning news, is it? So, I mean, I'd be okay with it, but I guess other people wouldn't. I don't know. Bald is beautiful, as they say. But I think that like he sees it and it's our little secret, right? But in the end of the movie, Paul Rudd tries to take the gun because he's waving Paul Rudd's gun around because he stole it earlier in the movie when he broke into his house for the first time, and he takes the gun and he's like waving it around, and Paul Rudd falls down after he discharges the gun unintentionally, but nobody gets hurt. But his toupee falls off. So then Tim Robinson just starts like acting crazy. Say, stay on the ground, I'm gonna kill all of you. So that they don't look at Paul Rudd with his wig off. And then he's like, put your wig on. Right? And he helps him out. He makes himself look worse. He makes himself look like a fucking crazy person. Just so that he can save Paul Rudd's career and have him being bald not get out. Which, I mean, it's kind of, he was loyal to him to the end, right? He was loyal to him to the very end. And at the very end, Paul Rudd, like, winks at him when he's in the police car, and that really makes him happy. That really cheers him up. Because they didn't have to do that. I actually thought that at the end of the movie, he would have ratted him out and would have revealed to people to, like, get back at him. He would have revealed that he had a bald spot. But no, it was just a secret between them two. It was just a secret. In hindsight, that probably was not very in character for Tim Robinson's character. I mean, he was so infatuated with Paul Rudd. Why would he rat him out? I mean, he ratted him out earlier. But he wouldn't rat out his biggest secret, because he still technically wanted to be friends with him, So, but let's wrap this around. The movie is really about Tim Robinson's character, Craig, who's, a little weird. He's kind of a loner. Nobody really likes him. Nobody really respects him, and he just wants attention, and when he finds Paul Rudd gives him just a little bit of attention. He like acknowledges his existence in a positive way, and there's a semi-positive way. So he immediately idealizes him, right? He immediately idealizes him, and he just tries to replicate everything that Paul Rudd does. So I mentioned the sewers earlier, but there's other things in the movie, like Paul Rudd takes him out into the forest, and he shows him like these cool vanilla mushrooms, right? And he cooks them. But he tries to do that without Paul Rudd later in the movie with his son, and he finds these mushrooms that are clearly not the same mushrooms, but they're poisonous mushrooms, right? And obviously he fucks it up, and like that just happens throughout the movie, right? Like Paul Rudd says that he doesn't have a phone, so Tim Robinson's character is just like, well, I guess I don't need a phone anymore, right? My idol doesn't use a phone. Why do I need a phone? Right? I want to be like him. So, and there's other stuff like that, but I just think that it's all about, this. I mean, I kind of feel bad for him. You kind of feel bad for him. I mean, he's not a bad guy. He's just a loner. You feel for him. I mean, there's points in the movie where I'm kind of rooting for him, where I want him to prove his doubters wrong, but it's really hard for him to do that because he's a fuck up. He's a big fuck up, right? I don't think he does one thing right in this movie. I mean, near the end, he does a couple things right, but then he fucks it up by getting arrested, waving a gun at people, right? So even he fucks that up, right? So to go even further, Tim Robinson's character, yeah, he's awkward. He's this and that, but that could be a cause of him being autistic, right? I was watching the whole film, I'm like, there's something going on with this guy, and it's not just him being awkward. I feel genuinely that he's on the spectrum of some kind, right? He's antisocial, he's awkward, he's super impulsive, he's like clingy, he attaches onto any kind of positive attention that he gets, and I think that's kind of why I feel bad for him, right? Because, I mean, obviously he's not medicated, he's not treated, he's probably not even diagnosed, right? He probably never even went into the doctors to see if he had an autism diagnosis. That's probably, he doesn't have the proper, backing system. He doesn't have proper care. And I don't mean like he doesn't have people that are aware, so he just looks like this big weirdo. But he's not. He's just autistic. But that's the thing. If people don't, I mean, I guess some people are just ignorant to that fact. And I don't know. I just feel bad for him. And I just kind of wish that he had gotten a happy ending. But really how the film was going, it didn't feel like he was going to get one. It felt like that kind of movie, where he would, I thought that he was just going to end the movie alone and in an empty house, which is where the movie kind of ended. But then his son still lived with him and everything. And he seemed to still have a decent relationship with his son. But then, as I said, went to jail. So that's probably going to muddy up the waters a little bit from threatening people with a weapon. But yeah, overall, I think it's kind of a sympathetic character, and I don't think he deserved it. I just think he probably should have gotten the attention. He probably didn't get the attention when he was younger. That was probably the problem. He probably didn't get that much positive attention when he was younger, so he was looking for it when he was older, because he kind of acted like a kid a little bit. He was kind of giddy about certain things. He always kind of hyper fixated on certain things. I don't know. There were just certain signs. As a person on the spectrum, I have that autism, spidey sense. I have the autism sense, so I can tell. That's not funny, but it's not funny. Anyway, I'm just kind of rambling at this point. But yes, I did like this movie, and precisely because of how real it felt. Right? There wasn't something like that. There wasn't anything fantastical about this movie. Honestly, this just felt like the life of some poor dude. It didn't even really feel like it was that ridiculous in that aspect. But one more thing, I did like the glass door bit, because he broke it at the beginning of the movie, and then he fucking ran through the same window at the end of the movie and knocked himself out. I thought that was funny. But either way, with that being said, would I recommend this movie? I would. I mean, if you I think you should leave. If you've watched that show, I think you'd get a kick out of this, because I genuinely think it's basically just an I think you should leave skit extended to feature length. Because I think the final segment where he is pointing the gun at Paul Rudd and his friends, that's just feels like it's that 5-minute segment or 10-minute segment feels like it would be in a I think you should leave episode, at least to me. But if you're a fan of that, or if you're just a fan of Paul Rudd, I mean, who doesn't like Paul Rudd, right? And honestly, if you're just a fan of comedies, again, it is drier. It's not a knee slapper, but it is still entertaining. It is still fun. It is humorous, and I do think you could get quite a bit of enjoyment out of it. But with that being said, what would I rate this film? I think I would rate this film a 7.5 out of 10. And, yeah, I think I've said what I need to say. I think it's my piece. So, guys, hope you like this video. Share with friends, subscribe, turn those notifications on. Comment on what you liked it. But you guys know how it goes. I didn't really mean to say that. What I really meant to say was hope you guys hated this video. Unsubscribe, dislike, and turn shame in the comments. And I've been Ronan Time HD, off to make friends. Don't look at Paul Rudd's bald spot. It's his secret. Only him and Tim Robinson know about it. So everybody knows that Paul Rudd is immortal. He doesn't age. He's a vampire, just like Nicolas Cage. But in this movie, it's funny because he's hiding it with a wig and makeup. But it makes you think, what if Paul Rudd's doing that in real life? What if it's a ruse? What if it's a bamboozling? What if it's not real? What if Paul Rudd is actually a 300-year-old vampire and he's just using his vampire magic to hide it? Or he could just be wearing a toupee and he's like 40. It's up to you, but I believe in the vampire theory personally.